He shared his food with a young alien woman. Not knowing she was the ruler of the galaxy, Ethan stepped off the cramped shuttle with a heavy sigh. The air on this trading outpost was different from anything he had known on Earth. It smelled faintly of spices, metal, and something sweet he could not identify. The marketplace stretched before him, a colorful chaos of alien beings, glowing signs and strange devices that whirred and beeped. He adjusted his small satchel over his shoulder. Inside, it held his few possessions: a ration pack, a small water container, and a worn notebook where he recorded observations from his travels. The market was noisy. Aliens of all shapes and sizes moved around, some towering over him with long limbs, others so small he had to look twice to notice them. The chatter of voices was a mixture of clicks, hums, and words he could not understand, yet somehow he managed to catch fragments. Merchants called out to attract attention, each trying to sell something more unusual than the last. Ethan's stomach growled, reminding him that he had not eaten since morning. He glanced at his ration pack: 2 small nutrient bars and a packet of dried fruit. It would last for another day, maybe, if he rationed it carefully. But as he walked through the market, weaving between the stalls, he noticed someone sitting quietly on a set of stone steps near the central fountain. It was a young woman, her skin a pale shade of violet, her eyes wide and golden, reflecting the glow of the marketplace. Her clothing was simple but elegant, a flowing tunic of soft fabric that looked worn and slightly faded. She had her knees drawn to her chest, her hands clasped around them as if trying to keep warm. A small, almost empty container sat beside her, and she stared at it with a mixture of longing and sadness. Ethan paused. Most travelers would walk past, too busy or too cautious to approach strangers in a crowded market. But he could not. Something about her reminded him of the people he had met in distant colonies, people who were overlooked, struggling quietly. Without thinking, he knelt beside her, offering one of his nutrient bars. "Here," he said gently, "you look hungry. Maybe this can help." The young woman looked up, startled. Her eyes widened and she hesitated for a moment. Then slowly she accepted the bar, her fingers brushing his hand. A soft smile appeared on her face. "Thank you," she said, her voice melodic but hesitant, carrying a strange accent that made each word sound like music. Ethan shrugged, smiling back. "No problem. Everyone needs a little help sometimes." She nodded and began to nibble the bar carefully, as if savoring every bit. Ethan watched her for a moment, noticing the care she took. There was a grace in her movements, something unfamiliar yet strikingly human in its simplicity. "Are you traveling alone?" he asked. "Yes," she replied, still eating. "I prefer to see things quietly. I do not like crowds." Ethan chuckled softly. "Then you chose a bad place to sit." She laughed lightly, a sound so gentle it seemed to harmonize with the noise around them. "Perhaps," she admitted, "but sometimes quiet can be found even in chaos." Ethan nodded, understanding more than she realized. He had spent months traveling from system to system, seeking knowledge, experiences, and sometimes just a place to rest. It was rare to find someone who seemed to appreciate the small things in life, someone who noticed beauty without demanding attention. They talked quietly, sharing small stories. Ethan spoke of his journeys across planets, the strange creatures he had encountered, the cultures he had tried to understand. The young woman listened intently, asking questions that were insightful, making him see his own experiences from a new perspective. In turn, she shared bits about herself, her love for quiet observation, her interest in learning about different worlds, and the simple joys she found in watching life unfold. Ethan did not question her origin or her background. It did not matter to him who she was. In that moment, she was just another traveler, someone he could share kindness with. Hours passed. The sun of the nearby star system dipped lower, casting long shadows across the market. The crowd thinned as some travelers returned to their shuttles and ships, leaving only a few merchants tending their stalls. Ethan noticed that the young woman's container was now empty, her small meal finished. He felt a strange pang of worry. "Are you sure you have enough to eat tonight?" he asked. She shook her head. I will manage, thank you again, you are kind." Ethan smiled. Kindness is free, better to share than to watch someone go hungry. For a moment they sat in silence, listening to the gentle hum of the market and the occasional clatter of a distant hover vehicle. It was peaceful, a rare pause in the constant rush of life. Ethan felt an unusual calm. He had been traveling for months, seeing wonders and dangers alike, yet never had a single encounter stayed with him this way. Finally, he stood. "I should get moving. I have another planet to reach before nightfall." The young woman stood as well, her movements fluid and graceful. "I will not forget your kindness," she said softly. Ethan laughed lightly. "Then maybe one day I will see you again." He did not know if he would, but the thought of it made the prospect of traveling less lonely. He turned to leave, adjusting his satchel. He glanced back once. The young woman remained on the steps for a moment, watching him go, a small smile on her face. Then she disappeared into the narrowing alleyways of the market, as if she had never been there at all. Ethan continued through the market, feeling a warmth in his chest. In a galaxy filled with wonders and threats, moments like these reminded him why he traveled, not for fame, wealth, or power, but for the simple connections that could bridge worlds. As he boarded his shuttle, he thought about the young woman. Her eyes, her smile, her quiet curiosity, they lingered in his mind. Who was she? He did not know, and perhaps he never would. But he hoped that wherever she went, she would find kindness, just as he had found a chance to give it. Meanwhile, Lyra returned to her own quarters, hidden in a small, discreet ship anchored at the edge of the market. She removed a small communication device from her belt, speaking softly to someone on the other end. "Yes," she said, "I have met him, a human unlike any I have seen before. He shares without hesitation, cares without reason. He is remarkable." Her voice held a mixture of surprise and admiration. She was careful not to reveal too much, for her true identity could not be exposed. The person on the other end, an advisor whose voice was calm and measured, replied with curiosity. "Are you certain, Lyra?" "You mean a common human traveler?" "Yes," she said firmly. "He is ordinary in appearance, but his heart, it is extraordinary. He does not know who I am, yet he treats me as an equal. That is rare." The advisor was silent for a moment, then spoke. "Be careful. Not all humans are like him, and your safety must remain your priority." Lyra nodded, though her mind was already replaying the encounter. She had traveled through countless star systems, observing her empire, learning the concerns of her people. She had met countless beings, each impressive in their own way, but none had left the impression this human had. She thought about his small gestures, his willingness to share what little he had, and the warmth in his eyes when he spoke. It was simple, yet profound. In a world often filled with power struggles and political maneuvering, here was someone who did not care for titles, wealth, or influence. Someone who acted purely from compassion. Lyra smiled to herself. "Perhaps," she whispered, "this human is someone I can learn from." The night deepened over the trading outpost. Lights glowed softly from the stalls and buildings, illuminating the streets with a gentle warmth. Ethan settled into his small cabin aboard his shuttle, eating the remainder of his ration pack and jotting notes in his notebook. He wrote about the market, the aliens, and the young woman who had shared a quiet moment with him. He did not know that she was the ruler of an empire spanning billions of beings across the galaxy. To him, she was simply a companion in a brief moment of kindness. But in that simplicity lay the beginning of a story that would stretch across planets, systems, and hearts. As sleep approached, Ethan felt a rare sense of contentment. He had shared food with a stranger, perhaps changed her day in a small way. That alone was enough. Across the city, Lyra looked out of a small viewport in her hidden ship, her gaze sweeping over the lights of the bustling market below. She thought of the human traveler and the warmth of his gesture. In her world of rules, expectations, and endless responsibilities, it was a reminder that greatness could be found in the smallest acts of kindness. And as the stars shone above, both human and alien dreamed, each unaware of how this chance encounter would shape the future. For in a galaxy vast and often impersonal, it was the heart, the simple, generous heart, that could inspire the greatest change. Ethan would continue his journey tomorrow, and Lyra would continue hers. Yet something invisible bound them together, a thread of connection stronger than distance, titles, or time. Somewhere deep in the galaxy, a story was beginning, quiet and gentle, yet destined to leave a mark on the cosmos. A story of kindness, of curiosity, and of the unexpected power of sharing food with someone who truly needed it. And that was how a human traveler, unaware of the extraordinary, unknowingly touched the life of the ruler of the galaxy, setting in motion a friendship that would challenge assumptions, inspire hearts, and remind the universe that even the smallest gestures could have cosmic consequences. The night ended, but the encounter lingered, like a spark waiting to ignite something far greater than either of them could yet imagine. The next morning, Ethan awoke to the gentle hum of his shuttle. Sunlight filtered through the thin viewport, casting warm streaks across his small cabin. He stretched and yawned, feeling the stiffness of sleep after a long journey. His thoughts, almost automatically, returned to the young alien woman he had met the previous day. Her golden eyes, the way she had smiled when he offered his food, and her quiet curiosity, it all lingered like a soft melody in his mind. He packed his things slowly, taking his time. The trading outpost was already stirring as merchants prepared their stalls, and the streets below buzzed with life. Aliens hurried past him, some carrying bundles, others guiding small hovering carts. For Ethan, the ordinary bustle of the market had taken on a different meaning after yesterday. He now noticed the way some travelers looked lonely, the way others tried to hide their weariness, and he felt an unfamiliar tug of empathy. Meanwhile, Lyra was awake in her hidden quarters aboard her small, discreet ship. She had spent the night thinking about Ethan. She replayed every moment of their encounter, remembering how he had spoken with genuine warmth and without pretension. She had traveled across the galaxy countless times, interacting with diplomats, officials, and even common people, but few had left her with such an impression. She had observed leaders who ruled through fear or calculated kindness, but Ethan's simplicity was something extraordinary. Lyra decided to follow him discreetly. She was careful, ensuring that no one could trace her movements, for her safety and her true identity as the ruler of a vast empire had to remain secret. She watched him move through the market, exchanging polite words with vendors, offering small help to those who struggled with their goods, and treating even the smallest creatures with gentle care. It was clear to her that his kindness was not limited, it was a part of who he was. Ethan, unaware of Lyra's presence, paused at a small fruit stall. The vendor, a squat alien with multiple arms, tried to overcharge him for a basket of bright, star-shaped fruits. Ethan frowned and began to negotiate, calmly pointing out the market rate. His patience and fairness impressed the vendor, who finally relented with a small bow, handing him the fruit at the correct price. Lyra smiled quietly from a distance. She had expected humans to be clever, perhaps even cunning, but Ethan's approach was different. He did not try to take advantage or show dominance. He simply sought fairness, guided by honesty rather than pride or greed. She felt a warmth in her chest, an unfamiliar feeling she had rarely experienced. As Ethan walked through the market with his basket, he noticed a small group of alien children gathered near a fountain. They were fascinated by a hovering, glowing toy that had slipped from a nearby stall. One of the children, small and timid, reached for it but could not grasp it properly. Without hesitation, Ethan approached and gently helped the child, handing the toy back to them with a smile. The children giggled, their eyes wide with delight, and Ethan felt a quiet satisfaction. Lyra observed everything, her admiration growing. Here was a human who acted without expectation, whose heart guided him more than logic or ambition. She had spent her life surrounded by advisors, policies, and endless calculations, yet this human acted freely, with a simplicity she could not ignore. She wanted to meet him again, to see if his kindness was constant or simply a fleeting reaction. Later, as Ethan sat on a low wall enjoying one of the star-shaped fruits, Lyra approached him quietly. She did not announce herself, letting him notice her presence naturally. Ethan looked up, slightly startled but not alarmed. There was something in her gaze that felt familiar, comforting, yet mysterious. "Good morning," she said softly, her voice carrying the same gentle tone as the day before. "Good morning," Ethan replied, smiling. "I didn't expect to see you again." Lyra shrugged slightly, her hair catching the morning light. "I like to observe. Yesterday was unusual. Most humans, most travelers do not act like you." Ethan laughed lightly. "I don't know about that. I just do what feels right." Lyra tilted her head, considering his words. "It is rare. Many act out of fear or expectation or reward. You do not." Ethan shrugged again, casually, as if he did not understand the weight of her words. "I guess I just believe everyone deserves a chance. No one should go hungry, no one should be ignored, that's it." Her eyes softened. There was a wisdom in him, though he did not realize it. In his ordinary appearance, his humble clothing, and his calm demeanor, she saw qualities that many rulers would envy: courage, integrity, and a pure heart. "I want to see more of your world," she said carefully. "If you do not mind, perhaps you can show me." Ethan blinked. "Show you?" "Yes, your world, your journey, how you live, how you see things. I want to understand it from your perspective." Ethan thought for a moment. He did not know why, but something about her sincerity made him nod. "All right, you can come with me, but I warn you it's not much, just simple places, small towns, markets, and quiet spots." Lyra smiled. "Simple, that is exactly what I want." And so the two of them set off. They traveled together through the narrow streets of the outpost, past markets and vendors, and toward the docking bays where small ships waited. Ethan's shuttle was modest but reliable. As they boarded, Lyra looked around with interest, observing the small details that spoke volumes about human life: cramped living spaces, carefully organized supplies, and the little touches of comfort that made a space feel like home. During the flight to the next planet, they spoke freely. Ethan told her about the different systems he had visited, the diverse cultures, and the small acts of kindness he had witnessed along the way. Lyra listened intently, asking questions and sometimes sharing her own observations, though always cautiously. She did not reveal her true position, but her curiosity was genuine. Ethan was fascinated by her insights. Though she appeared young and delicate, her perspective was sharp, almost instinctively strategic, yet free from malice or personal ambition. It was rare to meet someone so intelligent, yet so pure in intention. He found himself enjoying her company more than he expected, feeling comfortable in her presence. As they approached a small agricultural planet, Ethan guided their shuttle to a quiet landing strip surrounded by fields of tall, waving crops. The colors were vivid: greens, blues, and soft purples. The air smelled sweet, filled with the scent of alien flowers and freshly tilled soil. Lyra stepped out first, taking in a deep breath, her eyes widening with delight. This is beautiful," she whispered. Ethan grinned. "It's nothing compared to some places I've seen, but it's peaceful. That's what I like about it." They walked together through the fields, sharing small conversations, laughing at simple jokes, and pointing out interesting plants and creatures. Lyra marveled at Ethan's knowledge, not just of survival, but of the little details that made life meaningful. She realized that he had a deep understanding of life itself: how to observe, how to care, and how to act with kindness even in small moments. As the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, they found a small stream running through the fields. Ethan took out a small portable meal, sharing it with her as they sat on the soft grass. She accepted it, savoring the flavors, and in return she offered him some alien fruits she had picked along the way. "This is delicious," Ethan said, trying one of the fruits. Lyra smiled. "I am glad you enjoy it. It is simple yet full of life." They sat in companionable silence for a while, listening to the gentle rush of the stream and the distant calls of alien birds. For Lyra, it was a rare moment of freedom, away from advisors, politics, and endless responsibilities. For Ethan, it was a rare moment of connection, meeting someone who valued the small joys in life as he did. When night fell, they set up a small temporary shelter, using simple materials Ethan carried with him. The sky was a tapestry of stars, and Lyra pointed out constellations she recognized from her travels. They spoke of dreams, hopes, and the beauty of the universe. Before sleep, Lyra turned to Ethan. "I do not know why, but I feel safe with you. You are different from anyone I have ever met." Ethan smiled softly. "Perhaps we're all different in our own way, but if I can help, then I will." The warmth of his words lingered as they drifted off to sleep, each under the blanket of stars, feeling a connection that neither fully understood yet. Across the galaxy, the empire that Lyra ruled remained unaware of her small journey. Advisors continued their routines, thinking she was attending to ceremonial duties, while she explored quietly, learning from the kindness of one human traveler. It was a simple beginning, yet profound. A shared meal, a kind gesture, and a willingness to see the world through another's eyes had created a bond that would grow stronger with time. And in the quiet of the alien night, both Ethan and Lyra dreamed not of power or conquest, but of understanding, friendship, and the simple, extraordinary act of sharing food with someone in need. The morning sun rose over the agricultural planet, spilling soft light across the fields of tall, waving crops. Ethan woke first, quietly stretching and listening to the gentle murmur of the stream nearby. The air was crisp and clean, carrying the scent of alien flowers mixed with the earthiness of soil. He felt unusually calm, a sense of contentment that had been rare in his long travels. Lyra stirred beside him, her golden eyes blinking open. She gazed at the sky for a moment before looking at Ethan. "Good morning," she said softly. "Good morning," Ethan replied with a small smile. "Sleep well," she nodded. "Yes, very well. This place, it is peaceful. It makes thinking easier." Ethan packed their small belongings while Lyra watched him. She was fascinated by how effortlessly he moved, organizing their supplies with a quiet efficiency. She had spent her life surrounded by advisors who prepared everything for her, yet none had taught her such simplicity and self-sufficiency. Watching him work reminded her that even ordinary humans could possess extraordinary qualities. They ate a small breakfast together, a combination of leftover fruits and Ethan's ration pack. The simple meal was comforting, a quiet ritual that strengthened the bond forming between them. Afterward, they set off to explore the nearby village, a small settlement of human colonists and interstellar traders. The village was modest but vibrant, filled with laughter, chatter, and the scent of baked goods from a small communal oven. Children ran through the streets, chasing each other and playing games, while adults tended to gardens, small shops, and livestock. Ethan greeted familiar faces as they passed, exchanging friendly words and small gestures of assistance. Lyra observed silently, her eyes wide with curiosity. She had traveled extensively across her empire but rarely encountered places where life was simple and warm, untouched by bureaucracy or politics. She noticed how Ethan treated everyone with respect, listening carefully, responding kindly, and offering help without expectation. It was a striking contrast to the rigid hierarchies and calculated politeness she had known all her life. As they wandered through the village, they came across a small girl struggling to carry a basket of harvested vegetables. Without hesitation, Ethan knelt beside her, helping her balance the load. "Here, let me help," he said kindly. The girl smiled shyly, grateful for his assistance. "Thank you, sir," she said, her voice soft. Lyra felt a warmth spread through her chest. This human, so ordinary in appearance, was extraordinary in spirit. She wanted to understand him better, to see if his kindness extended beyond these simple gestures. They continued through the village, visiting a small marketplace where vendors sold fresh produce, handmade tools, and colorful fabrics. Ethan purchased a few items for the villagers, sharing them quietly and refusing any form of recognition. Lyra followed closely, impressed by his humility. At one stall, an elderly alien vendor struggled to reach a hanging basket of fruit. Ethan stepped forward, offering assistance without hesitation. Lyra noticed how naturally he moved, not seeking attention but acting purely from the desire to help. The vendor thanked him profusely, his multiple eyes glinting with gratitude. "You are remarkable," Lyra whispered as they walked away. Ethan glanced at her, puzzled but smiling. "I don't know about that, I just do what I can." She shook her head, smiling. "No, you are remarkable because you do not even realize it. Many would expect praise or reward." "You do not," Ethan chuckled softly. "I guess I've just learned that helping is its own reward." They found a quiet spot near a small river that ran through the village. Ethan sat on a smooth rock, and Lyra joined him, watching the water ripple gently over stones. He offered her a small piece of bread he had purchased, and she accepted it, savoring the taste. "This is very good," she said, smiling. "It is simple, yet it carries warmth." Ethan nodded. Simple things are often the most meaningful. They show care, attention, and thoughtfulness. Big gestures are fine, but small ones last longer in memory. Lyra considered his words carefully. In her life, she had always been surrounded by grandeur, elaborate ceremonies, and displays of power. Yet it was the small, thoughtful acts, the sharing of a meal, the helping of a child, the gentle word of encouragement, that truly touched hearts. Ethan embodied these qualities effortlessly. As the day wore on, they explored the surrounding fields and meadows. Ethan pointed out various plants, explaining which were edible, which could be used for medicine, and which were important for local wildlife. Lyra listened attentively, asking questions and occasionally offering observations of her own. Though she did not reveal her royal identity, her knowledge and insight impressed Ethan. He realized that she had traveled extensively and had keen intelligence, even if her demeanor remained gentle and unassuming. By mid-afternoon, they came across a small clearing where wildflowers grew in vibrant clusters. Ethan knelt to pick a few, handing them to Lyra with a smile. She accepted them, tucking them carefully into a fold of her clothing. "These are beautiful," she said softly. "Your world, it has so many simple wonders." Ethan grinned. "It does, you just have to take the time to notice them. Many rush past, too busy with their own lives to see the beauty around them." Lyra looked at him thoughtfully. "You notice everything, not just beauty but people. Their feelings, their needs. You understand life in a way few do." Ethan shrugged. "I just try to care, it's not complicated." But for Lyra, it was extraordinary. She had met countless leaders, diplomats, and scholars in her travels, yet few could see the world through the eyes of others with such sincerity. She felt a growing admiration, a desire to learn from him, and perhaps, in time, to share more of herself. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of pink, orange, and violet, they made their way back to Ethan's shuttle. Along the path, they encountered a small group of travelers stranded with a broken transport pod. Without hesitation, Ethan offered assistance, helping to lift parts and guide the travelers through repairs. Lyra joined, lending her insight and careful guidance, though always staying in the background. Together they completed the repairs and the travelers expressed heartfelt gratitude. "You see," Ethan said quietly as they resumed their journey, "helping others doesn't need to be grand. Even small actions can make a big difference." Lyra nodded, her eyes shining. "I see that. And I see you. You live this truth without thought for recognition or reward. That is rare." They shared a simple meal that evening near a gently flowing creek, the stars beginning to twinkle overhead. Ethan offered Lyra some of his remaining provisions, while she shared a few exotic fruits she had gathered earlier. They spoke of dreams, hopes, and the future, enjoying the quiet companionship that had grown between them. "You make the world seem lighter," Lyra said softly, her gaze fixed on the stars. "Even when life is difficult, your presence reminds me there is goodness everywhere." Ethan smiled. "Maybe that's all any of us can do, try to be kind, try to see the good, and share it when we can." Lyra felt a warmth in her chest she had never experienced before. She had lived a life of responsibility and distance, always aware of the weight of her empire, the expectations of her people, and the constant scrutiny of advisors. Yet here, with this human traveler, she felt free, safe, and understood. "Ethan," she said carefully, "I wish I could see more of your world, learn more from you." "You can," he replied, smiling. "I'll show you, but it's not always exciting. Mostly it's quiet places, small towns, and the people who make them alive." "That is enough," she said softly. "It is exactly what I want." Night fell fully over the planet, blanketing the fields in silver moonlight. Crickets and alien insects chirped gently, blending with the rustle of leaves and the soft flow of water. Ethan and Lyra settled near the creek, gazing at the stars, speaking quietly and sharing simple food. For Lyra, it was a rare experience of genuine connection and learning. For Ethan, it was a continuation of a journey that had brought unexpected companionship and insight. Each moment, each small act of kindness, strengthened the invisible bond between them. Lyra thought about her empire, the vastness of her responsibilities, and the pressures she had faced since childhood. Yet she realized something profound. True leadership did not always come from rules, commands, or displays of power. Sometimes it came from understanding, empathy, and the courage to act with kindness. Ethan unknowingly was teaching her this truth through every gesture, every shared meal, and every moment of patient attention. Ethan, too, reflected on the day. He had traveled alone for so long, meeting beings of all kinds, yet none had inspired him in the way this young woman had. There was wisdom in her questions, clarity in her observations, and a quiet depth in her presence. He did not know who she truly was, but it no longer mattered. In her company, he felt understood, valued, and connected. As they drifted off to sleep beneath the stars, each felt a sense of anticipation for the days to come. The universe was vast and filled with countless wonders, yet it was the simple, human experiences, the sharing of food, the helping of others, the quiet conversations, that truly left a mark on the soul. And so the bond between Ethan and Lyra grew, a connection forged through kindness, curiosity, and shared moments of understanding. In the quiet of an alien world, amidst the hum of life and the glow of stars, a friendship was taking root that would shape not just their lives, but perhaps the course of the galaxy itself. The next morning, Ethan woke to a soft breeze drifting through the shuttle's small cabin. The planet outside glowed with the pale light of its twin suns rising slowly above the horizon. The fields stretched endlessly, shimmering in shades of gold and green. Ethan rubbed his eyes and stretched, feeling a rare sense of calm that had become familiar since Lyra had joined him. Lyra stirred beside him, her golden eyes opening to the warm light. She had stayed close to Ethan since their journey began, fascinated by his simplicity, his honesty, and the natural kindness he extended to everyone he met. She watched him for a moment, marveling at the way he moved, as if the universe had taught him balance and patience in every gesture. "Good morning," she said softly. "Good morning," Ethan replied, smiling. "Did you sleep well?" "Yes," she answered. "Better than I expected. This place, it makes rest easier. There is no tension, no expectations, just life." Ethan nodded, understanding. Sometimes the simple places are the most meaningful. Busy cities, fancy palaces, they can be beautiful, but they often lack peace. Lyra thought about her own life, the endless responsibilities and formalities that had defined her every moment since she was a child. The truth of her position weighed heavily on her, but here, with Ethan, it seemed distant, almost unreal. She felt free, allowed to be herself, and the sensation was thrilling. After a modest breakfast, they set out to explore more of the planet. Ethan led the way through winding paths, past meadows and streams, showing Lyra the beauty in small details. She noticed the way he paused to observe insects on flowers, the way he listened to the sound of birds, and the way he treated every creature with respect. It was an awareness of life that fascinated her. As they walked through a quiet village, Ethan noticed a small dispute at a market stall. A merchant and a young buyer argued over the price of a small tool. The argument was mild, but it had drawn the attention of other villagers. Ethan approached calmly. "Perhaps we can find a solution that works for both of you," he said gently. The merchant looked surprised at his interference but agreed to hear him out. Ethan suggested a fair price, explaining how it could benefit both the buyer and the merchant. The young buyer smiled in relief, and the merchant nodded with appreciation. Lyra watched quietly, impressed. She had seen many leaders solve conflicts with authority or strict rules, but Ethan's approach was different. He relied on fairness, understanding, and patience rather than force or fear. She realized that the lessons he offered were not just about survival or travel, they were lessons in humanity itself. After the dispute, they continued through the village, stopping occasionally to help others in small ways. Ethan offered to carry groceries for an elderly villager, guided a lost child to their home, and shared small portions of his provisions with those in need. Lyra observed each action with fascination, noting the natural humility and generosity in everything he did. As the day progressed, they came across a field where wildflowers bloomed in colors she had never seen before. Ethan knelt to pick a few, handing them to Lyra. She accepted them with a quiet smile, tucking them carefully into a fold of her clothing. "These are beautiful," she said softly. "Your world has so many simple wonders. I never realized how much life can be found in small things." Ethan grinned. "You just have to pay attention. Most people rush past and miss them. It's the small moments that make life meaningful." Lyra considered his words carefully. She had spent much of her life surrounded by grandeur and expectation. Yet it was the small, genuine actions of one human traveler that left the deepest impression on her. She felt admiration growing inside her, mingled with a desire to know him better and perhaps learn from his perspective. As evening approached, they found a quiet stream surrounded by tall grass. Ethan set down a small portable meal and offered it to Lyra. She accepted, savoring the simple flavors. In return, she offered him some fruit she had gathered earlier. "This is very good," Ethan said, smiling. "Simple yet full of life." Lyra nodded. "Yes, it reminds me that there is joy in simplicity and strength in kindness. Even small gestures can carry great meaning." They sat in silence for a while, watching the water ripple and listening to the gentle rustling of the grass. The sky above was painted in shades of pink and orange, fading into deep violet as stars began to twinkle. Ethan broke the silence. "You know, I've met many beings across the galaxy, but few have left an impression like this. Talking to you, it feels different. Calm, meaningful. I think that's rare." Lyra smiled softly. "And I have met many humans, but you are unlike any I have seen. You share without expectation, help without thought of reward, and care without hesitation. It is remarkable. Ethan laughed lightly. I'm just trying to do what feels right, that's all. Lyra's golden eyes studied him. Perhaps that is the extraordinary part. You act without thinking of power or recognition. Many do not have that strength. As night fell fully, they set up a small shelter near the stream. The stars shone brightly overhead, and the gentle sound of flowing water created a peaceful background. They spoke of dreams, hopes, and simple joys, sharing quiet thoughts that had never been voiced to anyone else. After some time, Lyra looked at Ethan carefully. I want to ask you something, but you must promise not to be surprised. Ethan tilted his head, curious. I'll try. What is it? Why do you help everyone so freely? She asked. You give your food, your time, and your energy. Why? Ethan thought for a moment. Because it's the right thing to do. Everyone deserves kindness. Everyone deserves to be seen and heard. I've traveled far and met many, and I've realized that small acts can change lives more than grand gestures. If I can make someone's day better, even just a little, why not? Lyra nodded slowly. I understand, and yet I have seen rulers, leaders, and travelers who act differently. They care more for gain than goodness. You are rare. Ethan smiled softly. Maybe, or maybe it's just what I've learned along the way. Life is too short to ignore the good in others. Lyra felt a sense of warmth and admiration growing. She had spent her life managing her empire, surrounded by advisors, policies, and endless responsibilities. She had met people of power, intelligence, and ambition, yet none had the quiet strength that Ethan displayed naturally. She realized that he was teaching her something profound, lessons not of politics or strategy, but of humanity and the value of kindness. As they lay beneath the stars, Lyra found herself thinking about the future. She had responsibilities, an empire, and countless eyes watching her every move. Yet here, in this quiet moment with Ethan, she felt a sense of freedom and clarity she had never known. Perhaps it was not just the universe she was learning to understand, but herself. Ethan, too, reflected on the day. He had been a traveler, a simple human among countless beings, yet the bond he had formed with Lyra was unlike any he had experienced. He realized that friendship, understanding, and shared kindness were treasures in themselves, capable of transcending differences in species, culture, and worlds. Across the galaxy, Lyra's absence went unnoticed by many, though whispers began among her advisors. They assumed she was attending to duties, but some sensed something different in her tone during communications. She had begun to see the galaxy through the eyes of another, a human whose actions spoke louder than titles or power. The night deepened, yet neither Ethan nor Lyra felt tired in the same way they had before. They were awake with curiosity, with a desire to understand the small, meaningful details of life that so often went unnoticed. For Lyra, it was a revelation of what leadership could truly mean: listening, observing, and acting with care. For Ethan, it was the joy of companionship, sharing insights and witnessing the quiet wonder of the galaxy through someone else's eyes. And as the stars twinkled overhead, a bond was growing stronger, a connection that neither distance, duty, nor time could easily break. It was a friendship built on respect, curiosity, and the simple power of kindness, a reminder that even in a vast, complex galaxy, the heart could guide the way. Lyra finally spoke again, her voice soft but filled with sincerity. Ethan, I do not know what tomorrow will bring or how far our journey can go, but I am grateful. Grateful to see the world through your eyes and grateful to share these moments with you. Ethan looked at her, a gentle smile on his face. I feel the same. No matter where we go or what happens, these moments are worth more than anything else. The night passed quietly. Crickets chirped, a soft wind rustled the grass, and the stars moved slowly across the sky. In the stillness, both human and alien dreamed, not of power, conquest, or grandeur, but of simple joys, understanding, and the enduring value of genuine kindness. By the time morning arrived, the bond between Ethan and Lyra had deepened further. Their journey together was no longer simply about travel. It was about learning, sharing, and growing alongside one another. And somewhere in the quiet of the galaxy, the first hints of the extraordinary were beginning to emerge, unnoticed by most, but clear to those who truly understood the meaning of heart and compassion. The day ahead promised new discoveries, small adventures, and the quiet power of human generosity that would continue to leave a mark far beyond the fields of this humble planet. And Lyra, ever observant and thoughtful, realized that perhaps the galaxy's greatest lessons were not found in rules, strategy, or authority, but in a human's heart and the simple, enduring truth of kindness. The morning air on the agricultural planet was crisp and golden, carrying the scent of earth and wildflowers. Ethan woke first, stretching his arms and yawning. He felt the calm that had grown familiar during this journey, a quiet peace that came from sharing moments of kindness and understanding with someone who truly appreciated them. Lyra stirred beside him, her golden eyes reflecting the sunlight. She had watched Ethan as he slept for a brief moment, feeling a warmth that surprised her. Though she had traveled across countless systems and seen endless marvels of the galaxy, she had never encountered a human whose presence could evoke such calm and trust. "Good morning," she said softly. "Good morning," Ethan replied, smiling. "Did you sleep well?" Lyra nodded, tucking a stray lock of hair behind her ear. "Yes, better than I expected. There is something about this place. It makes everything feel lighter, calmer. And you make it even easier." Ethan chuckled softly. "I'm just trying to do what feels right." They shared a simple breakfast by the stream near their shelter. Ethan offered small portions of fruit and bread, while Lyra added a few alien delicacies she had gathered. The meal was quiet, comforting, and full of unspoken connection. After breakfast, Ethan suggested they explore a nearby hill that overlooked the valley. The climb was gentle, and Lyra followed him, marveling at how naturally he navigated the terrain. When they reached the top, the valley stretched below them in breathtaking beauty, fields, streams, and small villages sparkling in the morning light. "This is incredible," Lyra said, gazing at the view. "Your world, it has so much life, so much quiet beauty. I never realized how much could exist outside of formal structures and rules." Ethan smiled. "That's why I travel, to see it, to understand it, and to share it with those who want to see. Life is full of simple wonders if you take the time to notice them." Lyra nodded, her eyes thoughtful. "And yet, there is something more in you, Ethan, something that makes every act of kindness extraordinary." Ethan shrugged modestly. "I don't think of it as extraordinary, I just do what seems right." For a moment, Lyra was silent. She had kept a secret from him for their entire journey, a truth that could change everything. But she realized now that the time had come to share it. Ethan had shown her the value of honesty, trust, and the courage to act with compassion. She owed him the truth. "Ethan," she began carefully, "there is something I must tell you, something I have kept hidden." Ethan looked at her, curiosity in his eyes. "What is it?" Lyra took a deep breath, her golden eyes meeting his. "I am not just a traveler. I am the ruler of a vast empire, one that spans billions of beings across the galaxy. My name is Lyra, and my people rely on me to lead, guide, and protect them." Ethan blinked, surprised, but he did not recoil or judge. Instead, he smiled gently. "I see. That's incredible. But it doesn't change anything, does it? You're still the same person I met, and I'm still the same traveler. It doesn't change the moments we've shared." Lyra felt a rush of relief and admiration. His response was so different from what she had expected. Most people, upon learning her true identity, would act differently, fearful, cautious, or overly respectful. But Ethan's perspective remained unchanged. He saw her as herself, not her title. You understand," she whispered, almost in disbelief. Ethan nodded. "Yes. Titles and power are important, but they do not define who a person is. You are kind, curious, and thoughtful. That's what matters to me. Lyra felt a warmth in her chest. For so long she had carried the weight of expectations, rules, and endless responsibilities. Yet here was a human, ordinary in appearance, who had shown her that the heart mattered more than any title. "I have never met anyone like you," she admitted softly. "Your kindness, your understanding, it is rare in this galaxy. And yet you live it without thinking, without asking for reward." Ethan smiled. "I guess I've just learned that life is better when you help others, when you notice the small things, and when you share what you can. It's simple, really." Lyra nodded, her gaze turning toward the valley below. "Simple, yet extraordinary. You've taught me more about life, kindness, and understanding than any advisor, diplomat, or teacher ever has. I am grateful." Ethan felt a quiet satisfaction. That's what traveling is about. Learning, sharing, and connecting. Titles don't matter, only the hearts of the people we meet. For hours they explored the hilltop, observing the villages below, the flowing rivers, and the vast stretches of fields. Ethan pointed out small details: the way a stream nourished the crops, the interactions between villagers, the careful way people tended animals. Lyra watched, absorbing every observation, realizing that these simple acts were the foundation of a strong, thriving society. As the sun began to set, casting warm hues of gold and pink across the sky, they found a quiet spot near a grove of alien trees. Ethan prepared a small meal, and Lyra helped, placing fruit and bread on a flat rock. They ate together, sharing laughter, stories, and thoughts about the universe. "You know," Ethan said softly, "I never imagined I'd meet someone like you on my travels, someone who sees the world with curiosity, kindness, and honesty." Lyra smiled. "And I never imagined I'd meet a human who could teach me so much, not with words of command, but with actions of care. You've changed my perspective on leadership, life, and even myself." Ethan looked at her, thoughtful. "Perhaps we've both learned from each other. That's the beauty of meeting others. There is always something to share, something to understand, something to carry forward." Lyra nodded, her eyes glinting with admiration and respect. "Yes. And I hope that we can continue to learn from one another, wherever our journeys may take us." The stars began to appear in the night sky, each one twinkling with quiet brilliance. Ethan and Lyra sat side by side, gazing at the vastness above, feeling small yet connected to the universe in ways they had never experienced before. Lyra's mind wandered to her empire, to the people who relied on her every decision. She realized that leadership was not only about rules, power, or strategy. It was about understanding, empathy, and the courage to act with kindness. Ethan had shown her that even the smallest actions, performed with sincerity, could ripple across worlds. Ethan, meanwhile, reflected on their journey. He had traveled far, seen incredible sights, and met countless beings. But Lyra's presence had brought something new: a connection, a shared understanding, and the quiet joy of seeing someone appreciate the beauty in simple acts. "I wonder," Lyra said softly, "if our paths had never crossed, would I have ever realized this truth? About kindness, about simplicity, about what truly matters." Ethan smiled. "Maybe not, but now we have met and now we can share it. That's what matters. Sometimes the universe puts people together for a reason." Lyra looked at him, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you, Ethan, for showing me that even in a vast, complicated galaxy, the heart, kindness, honesty, care can make all the difference." Ethan shrugged modestly. "It's just who I am. I never expected it to matter beyond the moment, but I'm glad it does. I'm glad it matters to you." The night deepened and the stars stretched across the sky like a cosmic tapestry. They spoke quietly, sharing thoughts, dreams, and hopes for the future. There was no fear, no pretense, only the comfort of companionship and the gentle understanding that their meeting had changed both their lives. As the hours passed, Lyra felt a sense of certainty she had never experienced. She had met countless beings, learned endless lessons, and faced countless decisions. But the truth she had discovered in Ethan's presence was simple and profound. That kindness, generosity, and genuine care could inspire and transform, even across worlds. Ethan felt the same certainty. He had journeyed through the galaxy, meeting beings of all kinds, yet none had left such a lasting impression. Lyra had shown him perspective, intelligence, and curiosity, while he had shared the quiet strength of human kindness. Together, they had discovered something rare and enduring, the power of the heart to connect, inspire, and change the course of lives. As the night gave way to the first light of dawn, they packed their belongings and prepared to continue their journey. The bond between them had grown stronger, rooted in shared experiences, small acts of generosity, and the quiet recognition of each other's true character. Lyra glanced at Ethan, her voice soft but firm. "No matter what lies ahead, I will remember this journey. I will remember your kindness, your curiosity, and the lessons you've taught me. You have changed me, Ethan, and for that I am grateful." Ethan smiled warmly. "And I will remember you, Lyra, not because of your title, not because of your position, but because of who you are. Someone remarkable, someone genuine, someone who cares. That's enough for me." Together, they set off, leaving the fields behind, carrying with them the quiet strength of shared experience, the enduring warmth of friendship, and the unspoken promise that no matter where the galaxy took them, their bond would remain unbroken. And somewhere across the vast expanse of stars, the galaxy seemed a little brighter, a little kinder, because a human had shared his food, his heart, and his trust with a young alien woman who would one day shape the lives of billions. The journey ahead promised new discoveries, new adventures, and countless moments of connection. Yet the most important truth they had learned was simple, timeless, and universal: that even in a universe filled with complexity, greatness could be found in kindness, courage, and the willingness to care for one another. As they traveled into the horizon, hand in hand with their shared understanding, the stars above seemed to shine a little brighter, reflecting the quiet power of humanity and the profound impact of one simple act: the sharing of food, the opening of a heart, and the recognition that even the smallest gestures could ripple across worlds. And so, the story of Ethan and Lyra continued, a tale of friendship, understanding, and the extraordinary beauty of the human spirit, echoing across the galaxy as a reminder that kindness, curiosity, and genuine care could truly change everything.